Listen, devil come to me with a deal. Him say sign and say if you're not bust next week. Hear me and say the man you don't know and next better than represent, Big Stone television, So just keep it locked. Cause Big Stone is the real big man. You see me I say?
A very pleasant good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Big Stone Television. As we continue the series of Gone Too Soon, we're now remembering the greats of the greats that brought you record production at a different style and pattern. We're talking about innovators, we're talking about inventors, we're talking about none other than Osborne Ruddock, popularly known as King Tubby. The Dub Inventor was not only responsible for transforming the music making process, but also the way we listen to and appreciate music in the latter half of the 20th century. Osborne King Tubby Ruddock was born in Kingston, Jamaica on the 28th of January 1941 and grew up in the High Holborn Street area of downtown Kingston. On leaving Calabar Elementary School, he began an electronics course at Kingston National Technical College and studied electronics and 2 American correspondence courses. When he left college, Tubby began repairing radios and other electrical appliances and winding transformers in a shack in the backyard of his mother's home. He also began to build amplifiers for Kingston sound system such as Harrods, Emperor Faith, and El Toro. Tubby built his first sound system in 1957, playing jazz and rhythm and blues records from the USA at local weddings and birthday parties, and his reputation as a man who knew both music and electronics began to grow. He purchased his own basic 2-track recording equipment in the late 60s, which he installed alongside his dub cutting lot, a homemade mixing console, and his collection of jazz albums in the back bedroom of his home at 18 Drumley Avenue. Tubby called it his music room, but Bunny Striker Lee insisted that this music room had all that was needed to be a proper recording studio. From the USA at local weddings and birthday parties, and his reputation as a man who knew both music and electronics began to grow. He purchased his own basic 2-track recording equipment in the late 60s, which he installed alongside his dub cutting lot, a homemade mixing console, and his collection of jazz albums in the back bedroom of his home at 18 Drumley Avenue. Tubby called it his music room, but Bunny Striker Lee insisted that this music room had all that was needed to be a proper recording studio. Doing over or versioning another producer's rhythm or backing track had always been a part of Kingston musical rat race. An alternative instrumental or vocal version of popular song were also an established part of the scene. A rhythm version without vocal, possibly with an added on or organ part, was the next logical progression. The added space gave DJs the freedom to talk over the rhythm and seemingly answer and question lines from the song's lyrics. Jamaican DJs no longer introduced the records like American radio disc jockey, but rode the rhythm right through the record and gradually developed their own very style of toasting. In 1968, Tubby had taken on Uriah Beckford as his DJ. Tubby's hometown hi-fi with Uriah on the mic popularized the fashion for playing versions, and Tubby recalled that this was when his sound system really began to take off. The story of either Rudolph Ruddy Redwood or King Tubby taking out the vocals for special mixes of either You Don't Care or On the Beach have been repeated many times. In an interview with Carl Gill, Tubby recalled that it happened when he was cutting test plates for Duke Reed. Tubby was also employed by Duke Reed to maintain the studio equipment, dub cutting lot and amplifiers at Duke Treasure Isle Studio. But Bonnie Striker Lee insisted that Rudolph Ruddy Redwood from Spanish Town was the first man to actually play versions. Ruddy was cutting a dub, and Smithy, Baron Smithy Smith, was the engineer at Treasure Isle. Forgot to put in the voice through we were talking, and he was going to stop it, and Ruddy said, "No, make it run." So when it finished, they cut it back on the other side and put in the voice. I used to go over and listen to Ruddy and stereo in Spanish Town, and on the Monday I came in and said, "Tubby, you know the mistake we made up at Duke Studio? It's a serious mistake, you know, because the people them love it. It mash up Spanish Town." I don't remember whose tune it was, but it was Alton Ellis or Jano they were playing. They played the singing version, and then they said, "We are going to play part 2. And those times you never had any versions. So when they played part 2, the people just caught the song and sang it over the rhythm. They must have played it about 5 or 10 times, and it brought down the house. And as we say in Jamaica, it mashed up the place," says Bonnie Striker Lee. There's a saying in Jamaica, "Every spoil make a style," meaning if something goes wrong, do not fret. Use this mishap to your advantage to create something new. The use of serendipity, which creativity is wonderful advice, and these acetates with most of the vocal track left off and just the rhythm playing were the beginnings of the creation of dub. Tubby began by cutting his own instrumental version to popular rhythm, using 2-track tapes on loan from Treasure Isle. He would drop out most of the vocal track, but always left enough for the crowd to immediately recognize the song. As well as cutting dubs for his own hometown hi-fi, Tubby also acetates for other sound systems. He had lined the bathroom adjoining the music room with headbox to create a voicing booth, and as his reputation grew, it was only a matter of time before his acetate experiments began to make it onto vinyl. The importance of the rhythms to the history of Jamaican music can never be overstated, and Tubby was instrumental in the step forward in the music that would become known as dub. In recording terms, dub had previously meant to copy and overdub or to add something by recording on top of it. It did not take long for record buyers to get used to dub's new meaning of taking away to make a music that had most of the vocals and instrument removed, leaving only the bass and drum foundation. Byron Lee had Dynamic Sound upgraded to 16-track recorded in 1972, and Tubby purchased the old 4-track equipment from Dynamic Studio B. The package included the MC1 console or Miskin desk that Tubby would go on to make world famous. The board came with its own history of experimentation, and Dynamics engineer Linford Handicap Anderson already used it for his own early experiments in dub. Tubby's hometown hi-fi reputation was sealed as the top Jamaican sound system after playing out at Kingston National Arena with Bob Marley and the Wailers in the autumn of 1975. Later that year, in the last of a long line of similar attacks, the police completely destroyed the sound at a rural dance in St. Thomas, and Tubby's hometown hi-fi never played out again. But If 1975 was the year of the demise of his sound system, it heralded the arrival of King Tubby as the dub inventor and the music emanating from his Waterhouse studio as an internationally recognized phenomenon. Music lovers now knew to ask the record salesman to play the sides of record first because that was where the most exciting music was to be found. Hundreds of classic records were voiced and mixed at Tubby's Waterhouse studio, yet at the height of his fame, King Tubby never actually produced records, not even the way that the Kingston recording hierarchy had come to understand the term, and never ran his own record label. And as well as the King, other engineers, including Prince Jammy, Prince Philip Smart, and Pat Kelly, would take over the controls. In 1975, Island Record released Jacob Miller's version to Augustus Pablo, Cassava Piece rhythm entitled Baby I Love You So. In the UK, they changed the original B-side, King Tubby's Meet Rockers Uptown, into the A-side and promoted it heavily. Dub music had finally arrived, and articles on its significance and its meaning belatedly began to appear in mainstream music papers and magazines. Tubby had stepped back from engineering and dub cutting and was concentrated on the more lucrative electronic side of the business. And with Prince Jammy at the control, the studio entered a new phase. Demand for studio time was greater than ever. At the close of the decade, Tubby worked regularly with radio DJ Michael Mikey Dread Campbell and his groundbreaking Dread at the Controls radio show. Tubby stayed with Mikey when he began producing records for his label of the same name. They worked together in 1978-1979 on the DATC and 40 late releases Parrot Jungle, African Anthem, and Robber's Roost were the final anthemic recordings to feature Tubby's engineering skill. Studio One and Bedford Road is slightly regarded as a spiritual home of reggae, and the Drumley Avenue studio of Osborne King Tubby Ruddock will be known forever as the spiritual home of dub music. It was there that King Tubby, the dub master, turned the mixing desk into an instrument in its own right. Music would never sound the same again. King Tubby's 80s work is nowhere near as well documented or as well regarded as the 70s music, but the music was every bit as inventive. Dub had ceased to be a phenomenon and was no longer seen as a particularly exciting. Many of its most superficial aspects were assimilated into the musical mainstream. Tubby realized that the days of his tiny 4-track studio were over, and so in 1985 he began updating his equipment and his workshop. He recorded minimally, continued cutting dub plates, and concentrated on his electronics work while supervising the building work taking place in his Drumley Avenue yard. His plan was to have one of the most sophisticated studios in Jamaica with 32-track potential and a unique voice and laugh high up in the rafters. During the run-up to election, never the easiest of times in the fractious Kingston Ghetto wards, gunshot would echo through the Waterhouse with such alarming frequency that local residents renamed it Firehouse. Yet, this political unrest and attendant edgy, at times downright dangerous atmosphere combined to produce some of the reggae music's brightest star. Creativity flourished in its maze of zinc fence, breeze blocks, and pothole lanes. Tubby was criticized for choosing to upgrade in this notorious ghetto rather than move his operation uptown, but he was a true local patriot. He believed in the local community. It was said that people would be reluctant to come to his downtown studio, but Tubby was sure that his new facility would attract people into the area and help to rebuild it. It was his belief in his water-out roots that encouraged Tubby to invest in the area and its inhabitants, and he truly believed that music could be a force for social change. Winston Professor Brown, who had taken over the controls from scientists, skillfully spanned the gap between the analog and digital era before he left to study electronics in the USA in 1986. Although Tubby had now started to produce his own records, he still preferred to inspire others, and his remarkable self-effacement meant that he would still rather fix air dryers or wind transformer than boast his own remarkable achievements. His latest apprentice, Banton, Fatman, Pigo, and Phantom, now propelled Tubby Studio into a neck-and-neck race with his ex-apprentice, Prince, now promoted to King, Jammy, who had begun a musical revolution of his very own in the late 1985 when he released Wayne Smith under Miss Lenteng. Jammy's experimental digital explosion changed the entire nature of the reggae business. It might have seemed as if the apprentice had now overtaken the master, but this was not strictly true. As Jammy was busy vanquishing all before him and rewriting the history books, Tubby entered the arena with a sound that was so digital, yet completely different to Jammy's. There were some obvious superficial similarities, but that was it. There have already been far too many arguments over the advent of computer technology in reggae and too many accusations that it finished the music. The critics might have dismissed it, but the same critics had said that all reggae sounds the same during what they were now calling its golden age in the 70s. The music of the 80s is every bit as exciting and significant as anything that has ever come out of Jamaica. The high prices that many of these early digital records now fetch on the collector's market should give an indication of their true worth. The first #1 hit in Jamaica from Tubby's brand new Firehouse label was the Smoldering Tempo from Anthony Red Rose. This dark, taut record was loaded with all the brooding tension of Kingston 11, ghetto, and sung in a deadpan monotone that would become universally known as the Waterhouse style. Our next big hit was when we make Red Rose sing Tempo. That was our big hit then, a little #1 tune. These new records remain true to Tubby's roots. Released on the Waterhouse, Firehouse, Kingston 11 label, and Taurus labels, they were made for use by youths, and occasionally veteran vocalists included Cornell Campbell, Johnny Clark, and Gregory Isaac. Built specifically to be played out on sound system, many of the song's lyrics reflects Kingston's sound system rivalry. Noel Phantom Gray started working at Tubby's in 1985 after Jammy left, when his old school friend from Norman Manley Secondary School professor had sent for him with the message, "King Tubby want a man who know music beside him." I feel that Tubby was the best producer and the best man. All young youth, all upcoming artists, all artists who don't have a name, Tubby will put out a song and try with them. Him help out a lot of youth in the ghetto, says Noel Phantom Gray. Tubby started to use the Firehouse crew to build his rhythm, and the hits kept on coming. We bring them now and start work and cut a lot of hit tune, hit by hit, right up until 1989. We do good in the music business and put out an album named King Tubby Present Sound Clash Dub Plate Style. It was a Soundboy killing album and sell 40,000 over the world. It just sell like a 45, said Noel Phantom Gray. On the 6th of February 1989, King Tubby's Present Sound Clash Dub Plate Style was #1 in the charts in Jamaica and the reggae charts in the UK when a gunman shot Tubby dead outside his home in Duane Park and stole cash, jewelry, and Tubby's own licensed gun. For a short while, Tubby's daughter continued to run things, but without Tubby's guidance, the organization eventually ground it to an halt, and Neville Lee, Sonic Sounds, purchased the business. Tubby's killer has never been apprehended. King Tubby, King Tubby, King Tubby. What an exciting innovator he was. Born Asburn Ruddock on the 28th of January 1941, died on the 6th of February 1989. As we say always, gone too soon. How could we lose a pioneer, an inventor, one that believed in motivating and uplifting the youngsters in his community? King Tubby would try with every single youth that he deems to have had a talent. He gave up his life for a community that he believed in. Even though the community was hot, there were shots firing left, right, and center. Hence the name Firehouse. He decided to stay. And he believed that if he stayed in his community and build his community, then his community can only get better and better and better. Just like Tubby Diamond, he could have easily moved to an upscale, uptown, first-class community and live with the bourgeois, but he decided to stay with his people, work with his people, and give back to his people. And that is the thanks that he got. He lost his life way too soon, way too soon. King Tubby, I just want to say to your families at this time, my heartfelt condolences to you, your family, and your children. I know you cannot hear me now, but I know that your kids one day will possibly hear this tribute to their father, or their grandfather, or their great-grandfather. You've done a lot for reggae music. You've pioneered a new trend for us to listen to the music, because there are many forms to this great reggae music. And that is why I'm going to work assiduously to bring back all the greats and the great works that they have done, to help to make them current and trending, so that people all over the world can get a chance to understand and learn who these great trendsetters were. Asburn Ruddock, aka King Tubby. You came, sir. You saw, and you definitely conquered. You remained true to your heart by staying in your community and to build your community. And that is what was dished out to you. Walk good, O fallen soldier. Walk good. We'll never forget you. We'll never forget the greatness of you. And your music and your innovation lives on in our life and in many lifetimes to come, continually. Thank you so much for listening. Please like and share this video. And if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, now is the time for you to do so. Thank you so much.